Greetings. Today we're talking about journals for witches. I have mentioned journaling in the past a few times, but I thought I would put it in one video, some of my journaling thoughts, particularly at this time because I am absolutely obsessed with a new kind of journaling. To me, I'm going to be starting to follow Jessica Starr, TheStoryWitch, planning our 2019 journals, bullet journals. I'm going to go along with her and her session. I've been fascinated. I have my journal all ready to go. It's empty. It's empty, but it's the journal that she uses, and I'm all ready to start diving into that. I'm so excited, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what that's for in a little bit. I just want to go through my different kinds of journals. But the reason that I am bringing it up at all, other than the fact that I'm sort of obsessed right now with journals, is journaling, you know, is something that, you know, in the mundane world, some people are journals, some people do not for different reasons. It's really a personal thing, whether you like it or not. Some people are really not pen and paper people, and other people really get excited into pen and paper. I want to talk to you about the journals themselves, and I'm not going to say, you know, it's up to you whether you like pen and paper or you like to work on a computer or whatever as a writer. That's not really what I'm here to address today. What I'm here to address is really the idea of journaling all for witches. And I think to be a proper witch, you really need to do some kind of journaling. Don't jump on me. I'm going to explain what I mean in a minute. I really think it's really an important part of our practice for different reasons. And I want to show you some of the different kinds of journaling that I do. I have probably mentioned these in the past, but I thought it might be easier to put it into one video so that you can maybe compare the different kinds of journaling that I do, and maybe think about what kind of journaling you need to do in your own practice. Okay, so when we talk about journaling in witchcraft, the very first thing that comes to mind to most people is a book of shadows or a grimoire. People say book of shadows, grimoire, and they seem to use those terms interchangeably. I was a little curious what the difference was. I never really say grimoire. I usually say book of shadows. This to me is my book of shadows. One of them. Pretty much. Well, this is actually right now my book of shadows. Let's be fair. I don't want to complicate things any more than they're going to be. But the difference is really rather simplistic. A grimoire is actually just a book that shows information on rituals, information on spells or potions, offers, you know, how to maybe consecrate your tools, talking about the different times of the year. It's just information. It's actually your research. It's research, actually, in a written form. The reason that people seem to use the terms grimoire and book of shadows interchangeably is because most people's book of shadows contains those things as well. They contain a lot of information. But the difference, there is one difference, is the book of shadows is a personal book of magic, a diary of magic, so to speak, personal to you as a witch. You might have the information about rituals, about how to dress an altar table, etc., and you might even have some text of some rituals that you might have gotten off the internet or out of a book or something that you wanted to try out. You might have put in your book of shadows. But if you're anything like me, you keep changing, you keep adding, you keep changing different ones. You keep, well, this time I tried out this kind of a ritual. This time I'm going to try out this kind of a ritual. You know, and we wrote, my husband and I, always did ritual from a book of shadows. We didn't do it from, you know, note cards or whatever. We wrote it right in the book. We have a certain little stand that the book would sit on when we're performing ritual, and we would take turns reading from the book. Anyway, this was our personal, and what we did in our particular case, what I want to mean by personal, in our practice particularly was different because most rituals we were modeling ourselves, our own rituals after, we were trying to modify the ritual in a way to reflect both a male and female participant. So, we would have faces, we even have, and you can see, I'm not going to show you my, I don't want to really show you my private rituals. I don't know if you can see or not. I just want to real quickly say that you can see on this page I have purple ink, green ink, and black ink. This is something that my husband and I do when we sing as well together. The lyrics, when we use color coding to indicate when one of us sings or when the other one is singing, or whether we're singing together in harmony, whatever, we would use a color code or unison. And we followed that, we carried that over into our Book of Shadows, so that if it was a certain movement would be like let me hold it over the main altar candle to light it on fire. While it is burning, drop it in the cauldron, singing. That would be in black, that's a direction, and then we would say, if it was both of us saying it, it would be color. If it was him saying it or me saying it, would be color to indicate. It's also easy to look down and see color. But anyway, that aside, I'm getting a little off the subject. What I'm trying to say is, the rituals that we took from a grimoire, for instance, on writing rituals, maybe a good example that shows some ritual texts or rituals is Grimoire of a Green Witch, I think it's called. I shared that book, I don't know, maybe 6 years ago or so. I shared that book. It has text for ritual, suggested text. And that's where we got our ritual text from, or the internet or whatever. But then we wrote it in here and we made it our own, we personalized it. So that goes in our Book of Shadows. You see, that's a little different. A little bit different. Maybe there'll be spells in here. And this is what really struck my mind when I wanted to talk about this is I'm not sure how many times I will find the same spell throughout the book, or modifications of the spell. Like at one time, I think particularly like a spell that I would use over and over again is maybe a spell on finding lost objects. Okay, and I will do one of those, I think coming up. I have an idea for a video that might include that in a video coming out. But anyway, I have certain things that I use, and certain tools that I use to help with the spell, certain wordings I say the spell, etc. I have that same spell. It has occurred, I don't know, 2 or 3 times maybe in this book. But with each time it's have a little bit of a modification. I found maybe something else might work a little better than the way I had done it in the past. Maybe some of the herbs I used I didn't have. I tried something else. Anyway, it's some personal stuff, diary. I might mark in there later, I didn't like this or whatever. Okay. Now, what's the matter with that? There's nothing wrong with this, Book of Shadows. I mean, we keep these books. One thing, though, is all the rituals here throughout. Quite a few years ago, actually, my husband and I really stopped basically doing many private rituals. We do instead public rituals. We do rituals with the group. Not to say we do not, certain things we still do traditionally at home as well. Like we will do the Yule log. I've done that a couple times on my channel here. We usually do something at Samhain. Some special thing at Samhain is pretty common. Those kind of things. But basically, most rituals that we would do for just most Sabbats or even Esbats, we prefer to do those with a group if possible. We like the energy we get from a group. So some of these things that we wrote in the past really aren't really applicable to us anymore. But a lot of the ideas for dressing altars and small little things for altars are really good. For charging weight tools are great. some of the moon workings that I did with the moon at different times. These are the kind of things. Prosperity spells are great. Which ones worked, which ones didn't, you know. It's spread throughout this book, this personal book of magic, okay? So that is what we would use a Book of Shadows for. And I think everybody needs that. Now, when we're talking about these bullet journals, a lot of people are calling them a bullet journal / grimoire / Book of Shadows. For me, they're really not the same thing. Bullet journaling is, I think my bullet journal will include a lot of daily, this really is going to deal with day-to-day, mostly day-to-day bits of magic, day-to-day bits of spell work, day-to-day, you know, preparation for ritual or whatever, day-to-day getting ready for aspects or whatever. The little day-to-day things, not actually the rituals, not actually the texts of the, you know, not actually big, long, about Sabbaths. It might have reflections, it might have poems, it might have pictures that sort of touch on the you know, the sentiment of the Sabbath. I'm losing my words. but you know, day-to-day kind of things, but not big long texts of rituals, big long, you know, maybe not probably spells. If I won't have the text of my spells in here. Won't have the text of my spells in here, but I might have the keeping up with, you know, I might track the spell in here. Okay. Molly from HerSpeak, this was I don't know, maybe a 2 or 3 year old video, and I'm really, this is how behind I am. I never even heard of bullet journals till just recently, and they've been around for quite a few years, but I haven't heard of them. And there's a lot of videos now that are coming up on my feed since I've been watching them, some of the videos. But anyway, Molly says she did a video on, she called it a witch riff on bullet journals. And I'm going to, by the way, I will include a link for Jessica's, the link to her channel with her bullet journal information, and also Molly, I'll link back to that, because Molly also uses in her task tracker, which most people do when they do bullet journaling, and most people are just tracking their mundane habits. Molly is tracking things like, when did she last do cleansings on her house or on her altars? When did she last do protections up on her altar? Or when did she last, you know, clean her stones or switch out her offerings? What kind of, also I said the progress of the spells, or what kind of offerings, you know, when did has she left, etc. Okay, so in that case, those kind of things I will absolutely include in my bullet journal. The day-to-day, you know, nitty-gritty of it. But as far as the ritual, as far as the spells themselves and the rituals themselves, I think that's more suitable to a Book of Shadows. Now, as soon as I said that, some other thing has occurred to me, and this is just recently, because as the longer that you practice as your witch, and the longer you work with different, like do spells or whatever, the more room you need, the more you feel like you want to divide things up a little bit. My Book of Shadows, of course I don't have that many more pages to go, and then it's really going to be full anyway. But I might want to take, and I think I do, at a point really soon, go in here and find just spells from this book, take them out of here, copy them out, and keep a separate book that is just spells. That is just spells and recipes for potions and things like that. That is a different, because there's enough of them that they're going to be able to fill a book. And it's easier to find, rather than, you know, searching through page after page after page after page in this book and trying to say, oh my, I know I did a spell for blah blah blah. When was that? Where would I find that? you know, if I had them all in my book, it'd be easier to find, so I didn't have all these pages of other stuff. So that's one thing I'm going to separate out eventually. Another thing I just am going to separate out, a friend of ours just gave me another little journal. She heard I was interested in journal, and it's lovely. It has some quotes from Emerson in there, and it has botanical, like little leaves, botanical leaves on each little page in the book. It's a little paperback. I forgot to bring it in here with me today. It's on my table. That is going to be an herbal diary for me. I'm going to start tracking herbs. Again, we have not, and I might include in there my recipes for, you know, just working with herbs, because that's really a whole separate issue. I use, of course, herbs in spell work, but the herbs I'm talking about here, I'm talking about herbs for intention, using in tinctures, or using, you know, just what is there, you know, in ointments and salves, like healing herbs. Also putting the protection properties in there as well, but just like really trying to get in depth of some of the herbs. If I want to go through this book and I want to look for all of the times in here that I mentioned, you know, here's a good example. A clove, you know, all of the, I just did a spell yesterday using clove. That was the first time I ever used clove for that kind of a spell, and you'll be seeing that coming up in a short while. I'll be posting that video in a short while. But clove is used a lot of times. I just realized, you know, I have clove showing up not just in incenses, but I mean in spell work, but in incenses, in of course in tinctures, and there's a lot of things that we use herb for. So I want to do a separate herbal book, and I'm going to use my friend's generous gift that she gave me for that reason. Okay, so then I have another, which you might call Book of Shadow. I mean, another diary, a journal. This is a journal that only has to do with our work with a group. We're starting up, I think I mentioned a while ago, we are starting to work with a coven, a local coven here. And this is going to mark my experiences with the coven. Speaking of which, that will be another entirely Book of Shadows for us in the future. In addition to the Book of Shadows that we hold in our home, we're going to have a Book of Shadows that we share in common with people in the coven. Okay, so this is a whole other kind. This is a completely separate thing. Got to keep things separate. Okay, let me have a drink here for a second. Okay, we also talked about in the past, I've mentioned a couple other reasons I use journals, that I really have to keep them separate. You know, I really do, and that is, these are the two notebooks. Are my tarot journaling, and this is just, I have to say, basically Rider-Waite journaling. Okay, Rider-Waite journaling. I have gone through and I have dedicated in each of these books a page to, at least a page, maybe several pages of you know, of a card. And I've journaled, you know, I spent a lot of time on this in the not in the beginning, but I did a really thorough, when it came back, I don't know how many years ago this was. I really got into tarot, really big time tarot, started to get back into it, but in a big way, into a big major city. I started these books and I wanted to really get to know, you know, the Three of Swords, or the, you know, the Page of Cups or whatever, or get to know the major arcana, you know, what temperance, beyond what it said in the little white book, right? And I listened to a lot of people, I read a lot of books, but it basically just was experiences with cards, how they were with me, jotting down some notes about that was really important. It was really important. And now you know, this one deals just with the minor arcana, this one I have dealing with the major arcana. And I talk about it a lot, about the symbols that appear on most cards that, no, I won't say all, but most, a lot of them that follow the Rider-Waite system, some of the common symbols that you'll find on the cards. What the theme of the card is very often. Some of the keywords, but also I also included in this journal light and dark of each of the cards. In my opinion, each card has both a light and a dark, light and shadow. Not all card is all good, or not any card is all good or all bad. There's an element of both in each, and I try to address that as much as I could from practical experience with the cards. Now, that being said, these notebooks got pretty full. There's a bit at the back, some empty pages at the back that I wanted to, I've been giving some thought to addressing some other decks, because if you follow my channel, you've been listening to me when I was doing my study of the Wildwood Tarot, and now I'm looking at the Santa Muerte Tarot as well, some other cards. I did the Cat Tarot. I don't know. When I get a new deck, I want to look for what is the spin that's different on this card. I don't think that they're the same as the Rider-Waite necessarily, same meanings. There's a little different spin. There's a reason that we have a theme for a deck, a new theme that we're addressing, and so I think it would be a good idea to maybe do some journaling in that case. I'm not sure, because I started to fill up some tablets, and it's just a daunting task. It's a daunting task. But, my caveat is this. It's a daunting task to fill up the journals and to do the work in the journals. But without the journals, it's like a mess. It's a mess. You know, to try to keep track, it's one thing when you're just beginning out and you get a book of shadows and you're just going to start recording some stuff, and you just put some ideas for altars, and you just put some ideas for ritual, and you just put some ideas for maybe your correspondences in here, and color correspondences, and the moon's ideas, you know, on the moon and things like that. That's all well and good, but after a while you start accumulating so much experience and so much knowledge that you got to put it somewhere. It's not going to all just stay in your head in these neat little compartments. I realize your heads are probably better than mine, because mine's a little older than yours, and mine's a little messy, a little foggy, a little dusty in some of the corners. But it's just a lot of information, number one, to keep track of, and number two, just because you get it out of a book and it says the color candle, the purple candle is going to mean healing, or it's going to mean, you know, passion, or whatever. Some, you know, different. You find different meanings for purple candles all over the place. But for you, it could mean something completely. For you, it could be protection. It could be a very strong protection color. What are your experiences with purple being a protection color? Why do you think that? What was that based on? And that could be very important if you're going to do some spell work where you need some protection. You might want to include purple in there. Maybe you forgot about that because the book says to use black, because we use black for protection. We don't have to use black for protection. What works for you? So keeping track of these things is really an important deal when you get to be a witch. The more that you do, the more that you work your witchcraft, the more you're going to have to record your thoughts. That's the point. You're going to have to record your recipes. If you made a spell, if you did a spell and it worked like a charm, oh my goodness, you want to write that down, and you got to write your experience down. What happened? How quickly did it work? You know, what exactly did you do? What exactly did you say? You know, what exactly did you use to help you? What kind of tools did you have to help you? You need to write that down somewhere. And if it's buried in the middle of someplace that's not really organized, that's not going to help you when you want to do that spell again, is what I'm trying to say. So getting it in your head, how you're going to organize yourself, how you're going to journal, trying different ways. It's probably going to come to you in different ways all the time. That's perfectly well and good. When I go to start this bullet journal, I'm telling you, this is a lot of the everyday little bits and bobs, right? The every little day things. A lot of my mundane things, everything is going to be in my day. My day as a wife, my day as a mother and a grandmother, my day as a pet owner, you know, my day as a gardener, my day as a tarot reader, my day as a YouTube person, you know, my day as a witch, all are going to touch in here somewhere. All are going to touch in here somewhere, but not to big details. The big details are not going to be in here. The big details, there's no room for them in here. You know, there's just no room. And that's a daunting task. So, you know, having something that you can keep adding to is a pretty cool thing. One more thing I did mention before, one more kind of journal I did mention. This is just one of those composition books. And I think I got it at the dollar store. And the reason, of course, I liked it was because it's a peace sign all over it. I've had this for a long time. 2010. I've had this for 2010. And I use this. It is a tarot journal, but this is a tarot journal that I use in conjunction with my dreams. And I did mention this before, that I really am a dreamer. I really have some of the weirdest dreams sometimes. And I don't know why. I'll have recurring for a period of time, like for a week or 2 weeks. I'm just constantly dreaming that I'm in a certain kind of a place or doing a certain kind of activity or something. And usually it doesn't make any sense at all. But I know enough to know that it means something to me, that I need to pay attention. So rather than just try to rack my brain and look in books at what those symbols could stand for in a dream book, which you know, there are some really good ones, I'm sure. But I feel that my brain doesn't really work that way. I find, you know, when I'm trying to clarify some of my feelings as an empath and some of my, you know, the energies that are coming into that I feel are sensing around me as an empath, I use my tarot cards to help me identify those energies. I'm doing the same thing with my dreams. I'm using tarot cards specifically pulled to help interpret my dreams. And it works like a charm. I don't do it that much because I don't need to do that much, but when it happens, I journal about it. I journal about it, and I journal about it because I find, not that I'm going to go back and have that same kind of dreams again. That's not why. But I will journal, if I'm going to have, let's see if I can find a good example. Okay, this is a really good example. This is really personal. This is dated May 2013. And I'll just start out. Note, I had a dream last night that I was given another impossible task to accomplish, and no one was available to help me. I was in a kitchen, apparently an unfamiliar event kitchen, and was to make chicken pasties. I had brought something to contribute that was promised, but everyone else, blah, 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 dropped their stuff and had to leave for other commitments. I had other commitments, but could not get anyone to hear and was stuck there to do it all myself. Blah, blah, blah. I went on and on and on. The reason I wrote that is because these dreams had been occurring, reoccurring. And over a period of, and it wasn't the same dream occurring, it was the same kind of situation. Okay, so what is the reason? Okay. Why am I getting this message? Okay, I did this tarot spread. I did a tarot draw, and I got cards over a period of, I did a couple, I'm sorry, I was kind of reading about myself. It was very fascinating. I'm trying to count how many spreads I did. 1, 2, 3, 4. I did 4, not every day, but 4 during this like 2-week period of pulling some cards. And every one of those 3-card draws addressed something about this situation. It didn't address the situation of me standing in the kitchen having people dump their stuff. It wasn't that. It was the theme of the feeling that I was being left to handle things that I was not able to handle or willing to handle or whatever. That I was unable or unwilling to speak up. Okay. Doing things that I wasn't enjoying doing because I had, committed to do it and whatever. These things came up in my tarot spreads. That's when it's important. And if I would not have journaled, if you pull 3 cards every day and you don't ever write anything down about those cards, by Friday you don't remember what you were pulling on Monday usually, because we have such busy lives. We just don't. Okay, so that is a really good reason for journaling. I don't do it every day. For heaven's sakes, I might go, from the beginning of June to the end of July without journaling at all. But when something comes through again, another cycle comes through that's disturbing me, dreams that are disturbing me, I get my dream journal out and I write about my dream, and then I follow it up with 3 or 4 or 5, how many pages of tarot 3-card draws, daily draws, maybe once every other day or whatever, until I get an answer what that's coming, and it comes to me every time. It comes to me every time. And guess what happens? Those dreams stop. Once I figure out what it is that's causing me to feel those dreams, the dreams stop. Okay? Anyway, the purpose of bringing this up is I want you to think about it. I want you to think about how you can make your magical life, your life as a witch, which can be very complicated, a little bit easier by doing some kind of journaling. Pick some kind of journaling and let me know how that helps you. I would consider, if you were a dreamer, you don't have to use tarot cards with conjunction of your dream. You can use something else. It doesn't have to be tarot cards, but you should try to use something. Do some kind of something, maybe runes, or maybe, I don't know, other kind of divination, or looking for patterns. Or maybe you could look into your pattern in your control journal, just your little bitty bits, and maybe see what's causing your dreams. Maybe that'll help. But if you're having difficulty with your dreams, I would suggest this, okay? If you want to keep track of your spells, please keep track of your spells, and please keep track of your correspondence to things that really work for you. Find a way to journal about that. Write it down. It can be in your phone. It doesn't have to be in a book. But boy, it helps to have a book. It helps to have a book when you're going to do a ritual, doing a spell, that you can just find it, open it up, and there it is. There it is. And this is something that has worked for you. It's just like it's like your grandmother's cookbook. Right? It worked for her, and now it's going to work for you. Anyway, that's all I wanted to say. Again, I'll try to remember to leave those links down below for Jessica, Starr, TheStoryWitch, and Molly, HerSpeak. I think you probably have the links to those people anyway, because I think they're both possibly very popular channels already. But I just wanted to give credit to where I got the inspiration for this. That's all I have to say. Thank you very much for joining me today. As always, I wish you blessings.